tips from anecdotal evidence to get drafted for the AFL 2024 draft. So this is going off working at a couple AFL clubs, specifically with the sort of younger developing players, as well as being lucky enough to work with players for the upcoming draft combine over the last few years, mainly through working with agents and helping out with like a 6 to 8 week block before the combine. So hopefully these tips help you if you're looking to get drafted this year, or for those listening in the podcasting world in years in the future. I think these 50 tips should transfer to most years for the draft, as they're not too specific to this specific draft. It's more just general tips that you can start to do to not only help you get drafted, but also allow you to make an impact in your first year in the AFL, make that seamless transition, which more and more younger players are doing these days. So I've broken it down into some key areas. We've got 10 tips when it comes to skills, obviously a dominant part of the game. It's a skilled game, skilled technical game and tactical. Then we've got 6 from a conditioning point of view. We've got 7 from a professionalism/preparation point of view. 5 from an elite performance mindset. 6 in terms of elite lifestyle. 3 when it comes to leadership. 3 specifically for the combine and trials, so testing. 4 for life outside of football. And 7 for life outside of football. And then 3 for strength and power. So let's get straight into it and then stick around for the end. We've got our poll findings when it comes to strategies to mitigate injuries, some interesting takeaways there in terms of the options were hypertrophy, mobility, neuromuscular training, and balance. So I'll discuss the findings on our recent poll on LinkedIn and Twitter. Of course, announce the upcoming guest on the podcast and a free workout at the very end, which I do every week. But we'll get into tip number 1, master the basic fundamentals of kicking, handball, ground balls, marking, and tackling. There'll probably be no surprises there, and I don't need to go into detail onto why they're important. Number 2, work on both sides of kicking and handballing. Number 3, read the game and make sure you're watching tape with mentors or those that have got more experience in playing the position that you want to get drafted in. Number 4, watch AFL training sessions, games, and take notes, reflect on what you're seeing, and try and keep an eye out for those that play a similar position to you or a similar game style. Number 5, analyze your own game and seek feedback. The only way we can get better is by seeking feedback, so make sure you're reflecting on your game and you're getting some feedback from externals. Number 6, visualize successful plays and scenarios. Number 7, study different playing positions so you increase your versatility. This is something that's become more and more important in the current game. We need to be able to play a number of different roles, perhaps to be able to crack your first debut. You may play out of a different position than what you typically played in junior days. So if you can get exposed to playing at a high level in different positions, that's definitely going to set you up for success later on in your career. Number 8, analyze opponents' strengths and weaknesses and look to exploit their weaknesses. So specifically, if you're playing like the NAB League, for example, study the player that you're going to play on. So, but also from a tactical point of view, work with the coaches and get a good understanding on how the team that you're playing that week, how their strengths weigh up and how their weaknesses weigh up and how your team can tactically exploit their weaknesses. That's a great habit to get into early days. Number 9, understand your team's tactics and strategies. That flows on from what I just said. So make sure you've got a good understanding of both your line, so if you're a defender in your defensive line, but also midfield and forward, so you're versatile and you can be a real leader in driving the standards. Number 10, train in different environments to test yourself. So for example, if you've only played underage football, try training at a senior local football club to get used to the bigger bodies and perhaps even play a senior football game or country game to be able to get used to playing a different standard of football with bigger bodies. Moving over to conditioning. Number 11, work on your aerobic capacity, running either longer efforts for those that are aerobically pretty fit and you're more an endurance-based athlete, or if you're more of a speed-based athlete, do work on your aerobic capacity with shorter distances and shorter times. So like the longer intervals would be somewhere around 4 minutes with short rest periods like 30 seconds to a minute, where more your speed-based athletes, you might do things like fartlek for your aerobic capacity, 45 seconds on, 15 or 30 seconds off, and build up your fitness that way. So you keep up the quality. Number 12, improve agility by training, change the direction. So making sure you've got a good understanding of how to power cut on both sides, both left and right, but also you can practice your forward and backwards acceleration, your shuttle 180 turns, and then also drop step from a defensive point of view. So if you're not sure of those movements, check them out on our YouTube channel. Just go to Propelica Pro. We've got an agility playlist. But being really strong on the fundamental movement patterns of change of direction, so you can apply that in a football context like small-sided games in a contested situation and be able to break away with speed. Number 13, incorporate single leg plyometrics to improve your reactive strength. We really need that stiffness, so making sure both from a performance point of view, but also from a resilience point of view, you cover a lot of distance, both in high speed and sprinting, and there's a lot of accelerations, decelerations in football. So developing stiffness of the lower body is critical to a long-term career, as well as improving things like your explosive power. Number 14, develop efficient sprinting and acceleration technique, both from injury mitigation. As we know, hamstrings are constantly getting injured in football due to the demands of the game. So if you can move more efficiently, you're only making life a bit easier on your hamstrings. But also from a performance point of view, to be able to help you maximize your power, you want to try and move as well as you can, as efficiently as you can. So work on sprinting acceleration technique. That's also going to help with your 20-meter sprint time in the combine. Develop repeat speed ability with irregular exposure of high speed running. So that's 19.8 Ks per hour. It's a performance metric that we use in the AFL. So making sure that you're either tracking that with a GPS unit, or you're just running for distances and you've got an idea of what your average speed is for those distances. So if you're running like a 100-meter effort, we want to be running those in about 17 seconds to get regular exposure of high speed. And then number 16, measure your game from a work rate perspective with a GPS unit. So you can buy one like PlayerTech for like $250. They're not as reliable as the AFL units. However, that at least you're getting some form of data, and you can get a metric on what your work rate is per minute and how that stacks up with AFL players looking at the Telstra tracker. And you can compare apples to apples, midfield, inside mid to inside mid. Moving over to professionalism / preparation. So we've got number 17, develop a weekly game day routine. So I think it's quite common to have a game day routine on the day or perhaps the day before, but we want to get in the mindset like an AFL athlete where you actually have got a weekly routine, and that flow of what you do with each day, it should have a theme and it should feel really familiar because you've practiced it. So have a weekly theme that starts from the day after +1 from game day. That's day one, and then it goes all the way through till game day. So you should have a focus area, both physical but also mental, on important themes to get yourself recovered from the previous game, but also prepared for the upcoming game. Number 18, set both short and long-term goals. Number 19, train with intensity and purpose every training session. Number 20, train under pressure to replicate game scenarios. This is really important. So regular exposure to game scenarios is critical, and making sure you're training with players that are really strong in that area at your football training sessions, but also in the off-season and pre-season, make sure that you're getting regular exposures of practicing contested football. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, practice contested 1v1 contests. 22, have a mastery focus to get better. So like in our Prepare Like a Pro Academy, we have a Get Better plan, something that you're really working on sharpening your weapon typically. So it'd be an area that is a strength of yours, and you're constantly working on areas that you can get better at that trait, because it will be your strengths that gets you drafted, and it'll be your strengths that allows you to debut your first game and play consistent AFL football. Number 23, collaborate with your teammates. Make sure you're making people better around you. Collaborate with teammates, help them, bring them along for the ride for those that are enthusiastic about their football journey. And that will only help with team performance, but also make you a better teammate with that selfless mindset. So we're up to 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, moving over to elite performance mindset, mental resilience for number 24 to cope with setbacks. Number 25, develop growth mindset that embraces challenges and sees failure as a stepping stone. So we want to make sure we've got that mindset, and it can be really challenging at times, particularly when you're facing injury, or maybe you've got dropped from the side, you're not playing the position you really want to. There's going to be always continual challenges in football. So having that growth mindset is going to mean that you're going to get better from that opportunity, and you're going to be able to really maximize your development with that mindset. So that's really, really important. 26, manage stress and anxiety through relaxation and mindfulness techniques. 27, learn to bounce back after a mistake. This is in game. Football is filled with mistakes, so being able to embrace mistakes, move on really quickly to the next contest and stay present, and be able to breathe through pressured situations. Number 28, seek guidance from sports psychologists. So this is something that's it's becoming growing in importance and value at AFL level, and no doubt at lower levels it's only going to become more and more popular, really using sports psychologists, just like you would use a strength and conditioning coach to improve your physical capacities, using a sports psych to improve your mental capacities. All right, so where are we? 16, 23, 24, up to 29. So 29 is elite lifestyle. Follow a well-balanced diet, real food, and locally sourced. So if you can get your produce, if you're living at home, see if your parents can get your greens, your fruit, and your meat locally sourced, like a farmer's market would be really, really, because it's usually going to be seasonal. It's going to be more fresh, and hopefully the process that it's being to be delivered to you is more natural rather than pesticides and relying on chemicals. Number 30, aim to get a high variety of colours from real food. So the more colour you can get from the ingredients, the more balance and exposure you're going to get to a range of different vitamins and minerals which the body needs, particularly athletes, because you're burning and expending a lot more energy than general population. 31, stay hydrated. Don't need to go into detail there. It's an obvious one. 32, avoid excessive consumption of sugary and processed food. So if it comes in a package or it's frozen, be wary and avoid excessive consumption. 33, prioritize sleep to aid recovery and optimize performance. So it's not just about recovery, but it's also performance. So when you can, perhaps a nap might be something that really helps you from a training perspective or from a game day performance. So play around with that, but make sure you've got a good sleep hygiene, your bedroom set up that's conducive to going to sleep really quickly and efficiently and staying asleep throughout the night, and you've got a routine of what time you go to bed and what time you get out of bed. 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 have rest days to prevent burnout. This is really quite a challenge for those in their draft year, because you've got school demands typically, you've got state league demands, you've got local football club, other sports, academic demands. So being able to have an actual day, like it might be Sunday, where you have no schedule is really, really important from a regular weekly point of view. So you can mentally recover, but also for the body to be able to recover, be able to train at high intensity. We know from a cognitive point of view with the research coming out that there's an accumulation effect. So if you just keep rolling on, and it's a long competitive season, at some point you're going to notice the negative effects of cognitive fatigue. So give yourself a chop out and make sure you stay disciplined with those rest days. Don't turn them into a training day. Moving over to leadership, 34, showcase through actions and attitude. Number 35, encourage and support your teammates. So be a really good teammate. 35, display strong, open, and honest conversations. This can be quite challenging at younger age, but when you see perhaps a standard that was missed, make sure you address it straight away and get into that practice of having those challenging conversations. 36, familiarize. So this is moving to more combine and draft trials test. We want to focus on familiarizing yourself with the test. So the 2K time trial, the yo-yo, your vertical jump, all these tests, you want to practice them. You're really clear in your strategy, and you know exactly, particularly the endurance events, what you're aiming for and what you need to hit per lap to be able to pace yourself so you don't blow up too early, or you don't undershoot and finish the test with more left in the tank. 36, have a strategy for each event. And 37, make sure you set targets for each event, things that a minimum threshold, but also a maximum. What's your minimum that you're going to be satisfied with? What's the maximum where you're going to be absolutely stoked of hitting? Moving over into life, balance AFL with outside commitments. Make sure that you're valuing things outside, so like your studies. 38, display humility on and off the field, so being a good person. 39, have a hobby you love outside of the game. I think this is really important from a longevity point of view. So if you can start this at a young age, it's going to only pay dividends. Where it might be a different sport that you just enjoy watching. It could be something completely different to football altogether, like surfing, for example. 40, be mindful of the top 5 people you spend your time with. It's pretty well documented that those top 5 people are very influential. The top 5 people that you spend most time with are very influential on your thoughts and your behaviours. So if they're not living a similar lifestyle that's conducive to an AFL dream of yours, then you want to be mindful of who you hang around with, as that can pull you down and be one of the reasons you might not live your dream. What do we got here? Last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or up to 44. Be mindful of what you like and share, and also, of course, post on social media. That could be something that is negatively looked upon. Who knows if scouts are looking at that and recruiters are looking at that and clubs are looking at those sort of things, but it wouldn't surprise me. 45, attend AFL camps, events, and connect with the industry. You never know where that network might lead to in the future. And then our last 4, so 46, build relationships with coaches, mentors, and industry pros. And 47, this is moving more into the strength-specific tips. Learn great technique for the squat, the press, the pull, and the hinge. They're 4 fundamental lifts in the gym, so making sure you're really competent at those and have a coach teach you those 4 fundamental movement patterns. It's only going to make life easier when you're in the AFL system, and it's going to not only from a physical point of view, easier on your body, but also you'll be able to get some better performance results when you're in that program, when you know what a successful squat feels like for you. 49, build muscle mass around your trunks and your hips. Don't worry too much early on about your calves and arms, but focus around your shoulders, your chest, your trunk, and your glutes and adductors. I think that's a really key area for being able to, from a performance point of view with your contest, having that body armor. Obviously, AFL's a open age competition, so you can play against adults, whether that be VFL athletes, in the waffle, sample, wherever you get drafted, you're going to be playing a high state league game early on. And then when you do debut, you're obviously playing against those that have been in the system for a number of years, typically. So you want to make sure you start building that muscle mass around those key areas so you're well protected from the contest, but also for the speed of the game too. So fast reaction time, fast change of direction, fast accelerating, decelerating. So strengthen those areas, specifically your glutes will be really important, and having some good muscle mass around there. And number 50, develop resilience through stability. So lots of single arm, single leg work, and having good lumbo-pelvic control. Flexibility, I think this is something that's just, particularly I think since COVID, I've noticed younger athletes are becoming incredibly tight through their hamstrings and around their spine. So making sure your posture is good, and your stretching, particularly early in the day. If you can get into a stretching routine for your spine, that's only going to pay dividends. One bang for buck that I love to do is just simply hanging from a bar and relaxing all the muscles, and that can really just lengthen out your spine and lengthen all the muscle tissues around, but also using that mobility as well. So making sure you before each gym session or field session, you're doing mobility through your ankles, groins, and shoulders to help your fluidity and have more options on the football field. That will also help with your tests. If you've got more ankle range of motion, it should help with your 20-meter sprint. Having more dorsiflexion, it should also help you with your vertical jump, having more range as well. So as long as you're using that range and you're training your speed qualities, having access to more range of motion should be able to help you get a better stretch shortening cycle through the Achilles. So mobility has performance benefits and also will allow you to get ground balls, change position on the field a lot more fluidly as well. So there's lots of benefits to mobility, and it should be valued a little bit more than what it currently is. So there's our 50 tips. Let me know your thoughts, any that surprise you. I'd love to hear. Direct message on Instagram, TikTok, wherever you are on social media. What was your favorite ones, and what were some ones that you're going to adopt straight away that perhaps you're not doing or you've forgotten about, and it was nice to have a reminder. The podcast for this week, we've got Ryan Timmons, who's a hamstring expert in the research world. His episode will be published this Wednesday. Jeremy Hickman's High Performance Manager, and the strength coach Blake Duncan will be on at 4:30 p.m. this Wednesday, 6th of September. That will be live on YouTube. Really looking forward to that chat, all about transference from a strength and conditioning point of view, working closely with the coaches and how the details into that planning and facilitating those sessions and how to get the desired outcome. And then bite-sized episode for this week will be with John Pryor, who's an expert when it comes to rugby strength and performance training, but also applying the Franz Bosch methodology in a performance program. So if you enjoy that bite-sized episode, make sure to listen to the full episode. As I mentioned, the poll findings for this week, we discussed to high performance coaches on LinkedIn and Twitter. The poll was all about injury mitigation. What's your bang for buck most effective strategy? The options in the poll was balance training, neuromuscular training, mobility, and hypertrophy, basically muscle mass, gaining muscle mass. On LinkedIn, balance training got 14%. On Twitter, it only got 9%. Neuromuscular training was quite highly ranked on both, 46% on LinkedIn, 45% on Twitter. So that was our first most popular one, neuromuscular training. Mobility came out 14% on LinkedIn, 0% on Twitter, and hypertrophy came out second, 27% on LinkedIn, 46% on Twitter. So really interesting finding. This week's poll will be, what's your preferred method for tracking athletes' progress? Is it traditional pen and paper, the old school approach? Is it specialized software like Team Builder? Ash Newton's just written, thanks. Can I find a video of this somewhere? You sure can. It's on our YouTube channel if you've missed the start of the episode. So head over to Prepare Like a Pro on YouTube for the full recording, and we'll post the podcast next Monday. But the three options for preferred tracking of an athlete's progress is traditional pen and paper, specialized software, and wearable devices like GPS unit, Whoop devices, heart rate variability, tracking their sleep, those sort of things. So it'll be interesting to see the findings for this week. And lastly, the workout tip for this week is making sure that you train in the frontal plane. So we want to think our lateral plane, so lateral squat. We want to be thinking Copenhagen's, cable adductions, lateral shoulder raises. So making sure we're not just moving in a straight and up and down in the sagittal plane, but in the gym through the frontal plane, and include rotation specifically with your mobility drills as well. So lots of thoracic rotation, cyclical circle motions with the hips and the wrists as well, and your feet to make sure you're ungluing the body. So give those tips a go. All the best. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in live, and I look forward to seeing you with our live episode with Jeremy Hickmans and Blake Duncan this week on 4:30 p.m. this Wednesday. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as our podcast, and if you could rate our podcast on either iTunes or Spotify, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys.